The Marvel Cinematic Universe has endured invasions, cosmic threats, and forces that could literally rewrite the laws of reality. Yet it has never faced anything remotely comparable to the calculated perfection of a Primarch. Imagine a being designed entirely for war, whose mind functions like a hyper-advanced tactical supercomputer, whose body is sculpted for strength, speed, and endurance beyond anything the Avengers have ever encountered. This is not just a superhuman, nor a gamma-mutated anomaly, nor an alien entity with a tragic backstory. This is a Primarch, a warrior engineered across millennia with one purpose: dominance through precision, strategy, and absolute effectiveness. The moment such a being enters the MCU, the very fabric of the universe seems to pause. Atmospheric pressure subtly shifts, electromagnetic patterns flare unpredictably, and even the most advanced monitoring systems deployed by SHIELD or Wakanda fail to classify it. From the perspective of Earth's defenders, the situation is instantly surreal. Avengers mobilize, sensors spike, and every attempt to read this entity's biological or energetic signature comes back inconclusive. The Primarch stands, observing quietly, utterly calm, each movement deliberate to the point of surgical precision. There is no aggression, yet the tension is unbearable. Captain America instinctively assesses formation strategies, while Iron Man scans relentlessly for weaknesses, yet every calculation seems irrelevant. Thor descends from the sky, hammer drawn, sensing a power that feels neither mortal nor mystical, but something in between, something beyond comprehension. Even Hulk, whose destructive capacity rivals natural disasters, feels an instinctive hesitation, a fleeting recognition of being outclassed not by brute force, but by sheer mastery of combat potential. On a cosmic level, the arrival is immediately registered. Celestials, Eternals, and other higher entities notice the disruption, analyzing the anomaly through lenses of energy, temporal stability, and potential threat. Nothing they have cataloged fully accounts for the Primarch's existence. It defies every framework of power, physiology, and probability they've observed. Unlike previous threats where Hulk-level force or sorcery could balance scales, this is a being whose very presence bends conventional expectations. Its mental speed allows calculation of multi-threaded strategies, reflexes operate at near instantaneous levels, and its understanding of both physical and political dynamics surpasses the combined intelligence of the Avengers. As the Primarch steps forward, the MCU Earth reacts subtly, but unmistakably. Buildings vibrate, lights flicker, and even civilians experience a subconscious awareness of something incomprehensibly powerful. From every angle, the impression is clear. This is not a mere visitor. This is a force of engineered perfection, one whose existence will redefine every tactical assumption made by MCU heroes. Observing the scene, heroes instinctively begin to reconsider strategies, weapons, and alliances. Cap's leadership, Stark's technological innovation, Thor's mythic experience, all seem like preliminary sketches against the full canvas of the Primarch's capability. Even without striking, the Primarch has already altered the battlefield, rewiring the MCU's understanding of power, anticipation, and dominance. This first encounter is purely observational, yet it sets the tone for the hypothetical consequences of integrating a Primarch into the MCU. A force capable of reshaping the hierarchy of power, challenging conventional morality, and forcing even the most seasoned heroes to question the limits of their abilities. It is, in every sense, the ultimate test, not of strength alone, but of strategy, perception, and the ability to adapt under pressure. The stage is set. Earth's mightiest defenders, the planet itself, and even cosmic overseers are now participants in a scenario that blends philosophical tension with tactical inevitability. The MCU has never faced a being whose combination of calculated precision, physical dominance, and strategic foresight could so fundamentally unsettle the status quo. And yet, the Primarch has not yet acted. It merely exists, but that existence alone carries the weight of 1,000 battles, the inevitability of countless outcomes, and the chilling reminder that in this theoretical confrontation, traditional heroism may no longer suffice. Once the Primarch has fully entered Earth's environment, the MCU heroes are forced to comprehend the scale of what they are facing. This is not a typical threat measured by brute strength or flashy powers. The Primarch embodies an intersection of biology, technology, and tactical genius, a combination that renders conventional hero responses partially ineffective. Captain America, who has faced countless wars, begins by analyzing formation and predicting potential attack patterns. Every step the Primarch takes is calculated. Every micro-adjustment in posture or stance communicates a command, a prediction, or a potential counter to threats that haven't yet materialized. Iron Man scans furiously, feeding readings into his suit's AI, but the Primarch's energy signature is inconsistent, fluctuating in ways no technology can fully interpret. Even Thor, who has battled gods and titans, senses a precision in this presence that borders on the unnatural. Unlike his previous opponents, the Primarch's physical capabilities are staggering. Reflexes that exceed any known MCU speedsters, strength capable of bending reinforced steel effortlessly, and stamina that allows prolonged engagement without fatigue create an almost unshakable aura of dominance. However, what truly separates the Primarch from every hero or villain they have previously encountered is mental acuity. This is a mind that operates on multiple planes simultaneously, anticipating actions, predicting environmental variables, and calculating outcomes several steps ahead. When the Avengers attempt to coordinate an attack, each movement they make is quietly observed, analyzed, and countered in thought before it can be physically manifested. Even Hulk's raw power is methodically countered. The Primarch doesn't simply withstand it, but positions itself in a way that minimizes risk while maximizing potential tactical advantage. Every hero is suddenly acutely aware of their limitations. Psychologically, the presence of the Primarch creates an invisible battlefield. Heroes begin to second-guess their instincts, strategies, and even alliances. The Primarch does not speak, yet its mere existence conveys authority and inevitability. Vision, who relies on computational and logical analysis, finds anomalies in the Primarch's aura that defy his synthetic reasoning. Black Widow and Hawkeye notice behavioral patterns that suggest predictive capabilities far beyond human understanding. Even Spider-Man, whose intuition has saved him countless times, experiences a subtle dissonance between expectation and reality, a cognitive warning that something exists that cannot be fully anticipated. It is the first time in the MCU that the heroes confront a threat that does not provoke immediate combat, but instead creates a prolonged strategic tension. The city itself becomes a secondary character in this scenario. Skyscrapers, streets, and even minor environmental elements are subtly affected by the Primarch's movement and presence. Electromagnetic disturbances cause communication systems to flicker, energy grids fluctuate, and civilian perception is influenced subconsciously. This is a signature of the Primarch's design. It does not need to act destructively to exert dominance. Every observer, human or hero, feels an instinctive recalibration of priorities, as though the natural laws themselves have been questioned. This is a hallmark of Warhammer theorist-style storytelling. The sheer weight of presence and tactical perfection is enough to redefine the stakes without immediate combat. The Primarch begins interacting indirectly with the hero's approaches. Every adjustment in movement, every subtle observation, forces the Avengers to reconsider traditional combat strategies. For instance, Iron Man's suits rely on predictable physical trajectories, yet the Primarch anticipates and subtly counterbalances these motions in real time. Captain America's shields, normally an impenetrable line, are mathematically undermined by the Primarch's positioning and predictive calculations. Thor and other cosmic-level beings sense energy manipulations in patterns they cannot immediately categorize, indicating a comprehension of environmental control that borders on meta-awareness. The result is a tense standoff. The MCU heroes, for the first time, are not confident in immediate success. They are forced into analysis, adaptation, and introspection on an unprecedented level. In narrative terms, this confrontation demonstrates the core appeal of the scenario. The Primarch is not a villain defined by aggression. It is an entity whose supremacy challenges the entire framework of heroism in the MCU. Audience engagement arises not from explosive battles or flashy powers, but from suspense, theory, and anticipation. How do you fight someone who is not just stronger, faster, or more durable, but fundamentally more capable in prediction, strategy, and execution? This psychological and tactical dominance sets the tone for the entire story, aligning perfectly with Warhammer theorist-style storytelling, where the discussion of potential outcomes, theoretical combat scenarios, and cosmic-scale implications drive the narrative forward. By the end of this stage, the MCU is forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. Every hero, every tool, every tactical advantage they have relied upon is now relative, not absolute. The Primarch has established itself as a constant variable in the battlefield equation, forcing recalculation of strategies and highlighting vulnerabilities that were previously unnoticed. This is a shift from the usual MCU dynamics, where the combination of heroism, luck, and raw power often prevails. In this new scenario, preparation, anticipation, and tactical genius are the defining factors, creating a multi-layered narrative where every decision has weight and consequence. As the Primarch continues its measured observation, the tension among MCU heroes escalates into the first hypothetical engagements. It is critical to note that in true Warhammer theorist fashion, the focus here is not merely on brute combat, but on strategic dominance, prediction, and multi-level analysis of battlefield dynamics. Captain America, understanding the limitations of direct confrontation, attempts to orchestrate a coordinated advance, leveraging the Avengers' diverse skill sets in tandem. Each step, each flanking maneuver is meticulously calculated, yet the Primarch anticipates not only the actions of the heroes themselves, but the environmental variables that could influence their effectiveness. Even the most subtle shifts in terrain or energy signatures are exploited as if the battlefield were an extension of its own strategic consciousness. This is a being whose tactical mind transcends the sum of any individual hero's capabilities. Iron Man, realizing that conventional weaponry and technology may be insufficient, experiments with adaptive targeting and multi-layered energy projections. Even so, the Primarch responds with preemptive repositioning, exploiting every microsecond to minimize exposure and maximize tactical advantage. Hulk, often seen as an unpredictable force of raw destruction, binds his momentum, carefully countered through spatial positioning that forces each attack into controlled outcomes, demonstrating that the Primarch's mastery is not simply defensive, but dynamically predictive. Thor attempts to leverage celestial energy in an attempt to disrupt the Primarch's calculations, but these actions are anticipated, absorbed, or redirected in ways that suggest a near-complete comprehension of causality and physical law. From a narrative perspective, this sequence establishes the Primarch as a fundamentally transformative presence. Its engagement style is not about direct destruction, but about forcing every opponent to act within a framework of calculated inevitability. Meanwhile, support characters such as Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Spider-Man operate in tandem with strategic observation, attempting to find weaknesses in the Primarch's predictive algorithms. Yet, even their most subtle interventions are noted and accounted for. Every attempted distraction, every feint, and every defensive maneuver is subtly countered without overt aggression. This introduces an additional layer of narrative tension. The Primarch's dominance is both invisible and absolute, creating suspense and forcing the audience to contemplate the theoretical upper limits of strategy and reflexive intelligence. In this way, the Primarch's interactions embody the Warhammer theorist ethos, an entity whose presence and potential are more consequential than actualized combat, driving narrative engagement through anticipation and theoretical exploration. The cosmic dimension of the conflict is equally profound. Entities, such as the Celestials and Eternals, detect the disruption in Earth's equilibrium, interpreting the Primarch's arrival as a variable that could potentially alter the balance of cosmic power. While Avengers operate on an Earth-centric scale, these higher beings begin their own observational analysis, effectively creating a multi-layered conflict landscape. The narrative impact of this arrangement is significant. Not only is there tension on the immediate battlefield, but every action has ripple effects, potentially influencing interstellar or multiversal dynamics. This aligns perfectly with the Warhammer theorist approach, where hypothetical scenarios are explored with attention to cascading consequences across multiple planes of existence. From a storytelling perspective, the first engagement between the Primarch and the MCU heroes illustrates the crucial narrative principle that true power is not measured solely by raw strength. Tactical supremacy, predictive cognition, and environmental mastery define the hierarchy of effectiveness in this scenario. Every hero's instinctive confidence is challenged, every preconceived strategy questioned, and every technological or mystical advantage rendered partially obsolete. The Primarch embodies an apex predator not through aggression, but through the inevitability of its presence, a concept that resonates strongly with audiences familiar with high-stakes, theory-based speculative content. By the end of this initial engagement, the MCU is irrevocably altered, at least hypothetically. The heroes recognize that conventional methods are insufficient, that alliances, strategies, and individual capabilities must be reevaluated in real time. Meanwhile, the Primarch, having demonstrated strategic dominance without resorting to unnecessary violence, establishes itself as both a catalyst for tension and a measure against which all future encounters will be judged. The theoretical nature of this conflict allows the narrative to explore not only physical and tactical supremacy, but also philosophical implications, the nature of power, foresight, and the limits of heroic response in the face of a being engineered for perfection. The arrival of a Primarch in the MCU is not merely a localized event confined to a single city or even a single planet. The presence of such a being, whose abilities extend beyond conventional physics and whose cognition anticipates countless variables simultaneously, generates immediate ripple effects across both political and cosmic dimensions. Earth's governments, from the United Nations to clandestine organizations like SHIELD, are forced into unprecedented recalibration. Intelligence networks that rely on surveillance, predictive modeling, and rapid response suddenly confront an anomaly that defies categorization. The Primarch does not announce itself as an aggressor, yet its mere existence destabilizes command hierarchies, forces evacuation protocols, and prompts emergency meetings among leaders who have never faced an opponent beyond terrestrial comprehension. This is a signature of the Warhammer theorist-style narrative, a being whose impact is as much philosophical and structural as it is physical, challenging the rules by which the entire system operates. On a cosmic level, the arrival triggers subtle alerts in entities long removed from earthly concerns. Celestials, beings who observe planetary development and maintain balance across the universe, immediately register a fluctuation in energy and potential causality. Even the Eternals, whose purpose includes protecting life and maintaining equilibrium, note the emergence of an entity that seems to operate with tactical mastery and foresight far exceeding any human or cosmic intelligence they have previously encountered. This creates a multi-layered narrative tension where the conflict is not only between Earth's defenders and the Primarch, but also between observers who must consider potential interventions or consequences for the broader cosmic order. The MCU heroes, aware of the potential implications, are thrust into a scenario where strategic diplomacy becomes as critical as raw combat capability. Tony Stark, realizing the limitations of conventional technology, begins recalibrating strategies, not just to attack, but to communicate and potentially manipulate the Primarch's perception of the human-led alliance. Captain America attempts to maintain morale and coordinate tactical retreats and advances, while Thor and other cosmic-level heroes assess whether intervention is necessary, or if restraint is strategically wiser. This interplay highlights the unique narrative power of a Primarch's presence. It is not a story of immediate destruction, but a story of tension, calculation, and the redefinition of what is possible within the MCU. Civilian populations, though largely unaware of the intricacies of strategy, experience subtle but profound effects. Environmental disturbances, energy fluctuations, and a sense of pervasive anticipation create a backdrop of tension that permeates every city, every street, every moment. Narrative suspense is built not only through the anticipation of physical conflict, but through the psychological weight of encountering an entity whose power and intellect are so far removed from human comprehension. The audience experiences this same tension, mirroring the hero's uncertainty and fostering engagement through curiosity and speculation. From a storytelling perspective, the ripple effects extend further than immediate tactical scenarios. The Primarch's presence forces reflection on broader themes central to both Warhammer and the MCU: the nature of power, the limits of prediction, and the fragility of systems, whether governmental, heroic, or cosmic. When confronted with an entity whose very existence defies conventional rules, every decision the heroes make, every tactical adjustment, reverberates across multiple levels, ensuring that the audience remains invested not just in what the Primarch will do physically, but in the cascading consequences of its presence. Finally, these political and cosmic ripple effects set the stage for the subsequent narrative layers of the story. By establishing that the Primarch's arrival has consequences beyond immediate combat, the story aligns perfectly with the Warhammer theorist-style approach. Every action, reaction, and potential outcome is calculated, speculated, and explored. The narrative tension is elevated not by explosions or spectacle alone, but by the intellectual and philosophical challenges posed to the MCU's established universe. Heroes are forced to evolve, strategies are tested to their limits, and the audience is presented with a scenario where anticipation, theory, and analysis are as central to the story as the display of raw power. As the Primarch engages more actively with its surroundings, the first theoretical combat scenarios begin to unfold. Unlike conventional MCU threats, This is not a being that relies solely on brute force or raw destruction. Every step, every micro-movement, and even the slightest shift in weight is calculated to influence both terrain and opponent simultaneously. Skyscrapers, streets, and urban structures respond subtly to the Primarch's presence. Reinforced steel bends not from direct contact, but from micro-vibrations induced by immense kinetic awareness. Vehicles, energy grids, and even civilian infrastructure are affected in ways that make every environment an extension of the Primarch's tactile framework. The city becomes more than a backdrop. It is a dynamic participant in this hypothetical engagement, demonstrating the integration of environmental mastery into combat strategy, a hallmark of Warhammer theorists-style narrative. Avengers attempt coordinated attacks, but even combined power struggles are insufficient against a being whose anticipation extends across multiple timelines of action. Iron Man deploys adaptive weaponry, shifting trajectories in milliseconds. Yet the Primarch adjusts in advance, subtly redirecting force without visibly moving. Hulk, often the unpredictable variable, is strategically manipulated into positions that neutralize his own momentum, revealing that the Primarch does not confront raw power directly but leverages it against its source. Thor attempts to summon the full might of cosmic lightning and mystical energy, yet the Primarch's calculated positioning minimizes risk while exploiting every variable in play. Each hero's actions are observed, processed, and preempted, demonstrating a level of predictive cognition that exceeds any previously established MCU antagonist. Strategically, the Primarch transforms every engagement into a scenario of perpetual analysis. Heroes are forced to adapt not only their physical attacks, but their thought processes. Captain America modifies formations in response to micro-adjustments. Black Widow and Hawkeye attempt distractions and feints, and Spider-Man attempts unconventional movement patterns. Yet every tactic is subtly countered. The audience witnesses a theoretical battle where victory is not determined by explosive collisions, but by calculated adaptation, environmental awareness, and predictive mastery. This aligns perfectly with Warhammer theorist-style storytelling, emphasizing speculation, probability, and strategic depth rather than immediate spectacle. Beyond physical interaction, the Primarch manipulates perception, creating psychological tension. The Avengers experience momentary disorientation, not through magic or deception, but through anticipation of their own choices and the consequences of action. Every hesitation, misstep, or impulsive maneuver is noted and amplified, forcing heroes to consider new strategies. This creates a layered narrative, engaging audiences in both action and intellectual contemplation. Even the smallest decisions, movement of a single limb, the choice to attack or defend, carry heightened stakes because the Primarch's predictive faculties render mistakes exponentially more costly. In narrative terms, this hypothetical combat demonstrates the Primarch's dominance in multiple dimensions: physical, strategic, and psychological. Environmental manipulation, combined with predictive mastery, creates a scenario where MCU heroes must question the efficacy of everything they previously relied upon. For audiences, the suspense arises not from spectacle alone, but from the cerebral understanding that this battle cannot be approached in conventional ways. Each theoretical maneuver, each adaptation, each minor error contributes to a dynamic, evolving tableau that perfectly illustrates the Warhammer theorist-style focus on high-level speculation, tactical brilliance, and the broader implications of a superlative entity within an established universe. By the conclusion of this stage, it becomes evident that the MCU is dealing with an entirely new paradigm. Conventional strengths, heroic instincts, and technological advantages are now variables to be weighed against an entity whose comprehension of probability, physics, and tactical outcome transcends all previous experience. This paragraph sets the stage for subsequent exploration of multilateral responses, alliance formation, and potential long-term consequences for both Earth and cosmic order, while maintaining suspense, intellectual engagement, and the cinematic tension necessary for a 35 to 40-minute video narrative. A hypothetical presence of a Primarch in the MCU immediately forces heroes, governments, and cosmic entities into complex strategic calculations. Avengers recognize that brute force alone cannot contain or neutralize the Primarch, prompting a shift toward collaborative and adaptive alliance strategies. This is not merely a matter of joining forces. It requires recalibrating individual strengths and compensating for vulnerabilities that have never been exposed in prior conflicts. Iron Man begins analyzing patterns in real time, attempting to synchronize tech with predictive algorithms, while Captain America coordinates hero movements with precision-based contingency planning. Even Thor, whose experience spans centuries and worlds, must consider timing and restraint in his approach. The narrative emphasizes that the Primarch's superiority lies not only in combat skill, but in the ability to force an entire coalition to evolve instantaneously, redefining the dynamics of teamwork and strategic adaptation. Meanwhile, cosmic observers like the Celestials and Eternals continue monitoring the situation. The Primarch's predictive capabilities, immense energy output, and adaptive intelligence present anomalies that are difficult to classify within established cosmic hierarchies. These entities recognize that any direct intervention could either escalate conflict or inadvertently empower the Primarch, which raises a philosophical question central to Warhammer theorist-style narratives. When facing an entity of unmatched capability, is observation, interference, or inaction the optimal path? This theoretical dilemma adds layers of suspense for the audience, highlighting how a single entity can influence not only Earth, but the broader cosmic equilibrium. The presence of a Primarch also introduces long-term consequences for global and interstellar governance. Earth-based institutions, from SHIELD to Wakanda's leadership, must consider policies and defense mechanisms for scenarios that previously existed only in contingency planning. Military and scientific communities are forced to analyze previously theoretical combat data in practical terms. Understanding that this being operates outside normal physical and tactical boundaries. Simultaneously, cosmic-level politics, including potential interactions with other universes and dimensions, become influenced by the Primarch's presence. This creates a multi-tiered narrative where actions and decisions reverberate across multiple layers of reality, emphasizing high-stakes speculation rather than conventional hero-villain dynamics. The MCU heroes themselves begin to adapt in response to both immediate and potential future challenges. They experiment with layered strategies, combining stealth, brute force, technological innovation, and predictive modeling to anticipate the Primarch's reactions. Each tactical choice carries a narrative weight, illustrating how theoretical and calculated responses can become as suspenseful and dramatic as physical combat. In this scenario, the Primarch is not merely an antagonist, but a catalyst, forcing character evolution and strategic innovation. Every sequence of preparation, observation, and deployment becomes an intellectual chess match, engaging the audience in speculation and theory while maintaining cinematic tension. From a storytelling perspective, this stage highlights the unique value of integrating a Primarch into the MCU. Traditional narrative arcs rely on conflict, resolution, and spectacle. Here, suspense emerges from calculation, anticipation, and theoretical dominance. The Primarch transforms the MCU's familiar landscape into a scenario where probability, environment, and predictive intelligence define engagement. Every decision by heroes or institutions is significant, not because of immediate destruction, but because of the cascading implications for both Earth and the cosmic hierarchy. This layered approach sustains attention over extended narrative sequences, supporting the 35 to 40-minute runtime, while ensuring that audience engagement remains high through intellectual curiosity and speculative analysis. Ultimately, the presence of a Primarch forces an evolution in the MCU's storytelling paradigm. Heroes are challenged, institutions are tested, and cosmic entities are compelled to reconsider their frameworks. The narrative tension arises not from spectacle alone, but from the understanding that a single entity, engineered for perfection in war, strategy, and prediction, can alter the trajectory of multiple realities simultaneously. This paragraph sets the stage for exploring not just immediate confrontations, but long-term scenarios in which alliances, strategies, and cosmic hierarchies are reshaped, aligning perfectly with Warhammer theorist-style speculative storytelling. The arrival of a Primarch in the MCU introduces not only physical and tactical challenges, but profound ethical and moral dilemmas. Unlike conventional adversaries, whose motives are often clearly defined, the Primarch operates on a principle of strategic dominance rather than malice or ideology. This forces MCU heroes to question their conventional decision-making frameworks. Should they engage proactively, risking global devastation, or attempt negotiation, even though the Primarch's priorities may be entirely inscrutable? Captain America, whose moral compass is traditionally absolute, must reconcile the potential consequences of action versus inaction. Iron Man, whose reliance on technology allows him to calculate probabilities, faces the unsettling reality that the Primarch's predictive capabilities exceed any simulation or algorithm he can deploy. The moral complexity of the scenario lies in the balance between survival, pragmatism, and heroism. The Primarch's presence forces heroes to consider the collateral consequences of every choice, whether it involves immediate combat, preemptive strikes, or strategic containment. Conventional heroism, charging into battle with the confidence of victory, is no longer viable. Every action has cascading consequences. A miscalculation could endanger civilians, destabilize global systems, or even attract attention from higher cosmic entities with their own agendas. From a narrative perspective, this creates sustained tension and engagement. The audience is compelled to contemplate not just what will happen next, but what should happen, forcing a deeper intellectual and emotional investment in the scenario.